Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by Honeytree REIT and PropertyCast.io. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Megan Betker here with me, joining me all the way from Victoria, BC. She is an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and also a financial advisor, specializing in helping real estate investors and business owners implement the power of infinite banking. Of course, we're going to dive into that topic later on. As a business owner and real estate investor herself, she realizes that standard financial plans and strategies don't work for an entrepreneur or real estate investor most of the time. So her purpose is to share specifically design strategies that can help clients take control of their finances, grow their wealth and net worth while enjoying the lifestyle and security that it provides to them. So thank you so much for being here, Megan. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Serena. I'm really excited to be here.
So now obviously the whole focus of this podcast is real estate investing. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what your portfolio looks like and take us back to what life looked like before real estate investing became a focus for you.
Yeah. So in terms of real estate investing, I'm not going to say I've done it all because there's a lot more that I can still do, but I've done flips. I have buy and hold properties. Most recently in the past 2 years, I've been focusing on building out single family homes.
Okay.
So that's kind of been my focus since I got started, I guess in 2015. And there's a lot of different places that I'm hoping to take this, but that kind of the fundamental. And what kind of got me started there in real estate was going to a 3-day event.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention which 3-day event it was because I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been there.
Yeah.
A lot of people get started there. I went to a 3-day event that my partner had actually signed up for to go with his friend, and his friend bailed last minute. So I got the pity invite to go, and in that weekend, I ended up securing a rental property that weekend, just based on some of the fundamentals that they had shared that really clicked for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of just ran with it from there. So real estate's played a huge part in both my professional life and just like my passion, my hobby, my personal life as well.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think for everybody, there's that catalyst where things just kind of happen. And speaking of that 3-day event, I remember I also went to a 3-day event. I had extra tickets and I couldn't like sell them. I couldn't give them away. And then after I was like, oh my gosh, like people don't even realize what they're missing. Right. So I think it's important just to say yes and be open to possibilities and obviously just educating yourself and taking action. Now, since you have done so much in the realm of real estate, what would you say are some of the biggest lessons that have come along with your experience so far?
Biggest lessons. Oh, there's been a lot. I don't think you can get into real estate investing and not learn a lot of lessons along the way. I wish I had gotten started sooner, and I think everybody says that. I probably could have got started right when I was out of the womb, and I would have been way further ahead. But here we are. But yeah, getting started. I think that's one of the key things is that you're not going to know everything, but if you can take one avenue in real estate and find a mentor or find someone that can coach you, go to a 3-day event that's going to help give you some kind of direction. You don't know what you're going to get out of that and where that can propel you to. And I found getting in rooms like that really does put you around people that they've made mistakes, they've had successes, so you can learn there. You can bypass a lot of the mistakes that you don't have to make, hopefully. But it can give you some direction too, right? Like I meet a lot of people that want to get started in real estate investing, but they're really not sure where to start. There's so much content out there nowadays, which is a blessing and I think a challenge for a lot of people. So if you can find one thing to focus on and take that can kind of consistency, just take like one step at a time in that area. I think that's a huge like learning point, I guess.
Yeah, there's one speaker that I saw not too long ago, and he talked about the cost of lost opportunity. And basically by getting in front of these rooms or educating yourself, obviously you can accelerate your growth. So instead of taking 5 years to get somewhere, if you can do that in 8 months or a year, just think about how much further ahead you'd be by gaining that, right? So I thought that was a really powerful way to look at it, where oftentimes feel like, oh, but it costs this. Like, yeah, but when you look
100%.
at the time you're losing, if you don't, then obviously that makes perfect sense.
I think that kind of goes
Um,
back to that quote where it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
yeah,
Um, and I think that that's kind of like a key. Like the more people that you can surround yourself with and absorb that information,
yeah,
uh, I think the likelihood of um, not having to learn hopefully as many lessons or mistakes or
yeah.
things like that, I think that could take you really far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, when you look back at some of the things that you have done, is there anything that stands out to you as one of the biggest obstacles that you had to face and overcome?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles that I probably had to face was myself, to be honest, getting out of my own way, my own head. And I think that that resonates for a lot of people. I remember I'm going to say it was probably about 2016, maybe 17, sitting in my counselor's office and telling him that I wanted to get started building homes. I could envision this life that I was going to create when I was doing that. And I didn't know, I'd never built a thing. I had no idea how I was going to get into building homes. Where do you start again? But I remember that so vividly and I could just feel it in myself. And it was kind of taking the risk on myself to just start. Um, and again, that comes down to meeting the right people. So I think it was getting out of my way and not asking the questions, well, how am I going to do this? But trying to surround myself with the who's
Hmm.
that could help me do that. And I ended up partnering with my best friend, luckily enough, to get started into building homes. And she had done a little bit in the past of doing that.
Hmm.
So I was able to take advantage of her knowledge already.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was really just getting out of my own way and not questioning or saying, I don't know how to do this. Yeah, I think that that's huge. And I don't think it's just real estate investing that kind of comes into play. I
yeah,
think that's all areas of our life. We kind of get in our own head and our bodies don't want us to get out of our comfort zone. Our conscience doesn't want us to get out of our comfort zone, right? It's
yeah.
it's content there. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
but you
that
adapt and you learn and you grow. Would you say there's anything that you're most proud of when you think back to all the different projects that you've been part of?
I still think it's like just getting started. My very first build, I'd say, is probably what I'd be most proud of. And the reason I would say that is just or some reflection that I've had recently. Me and my business partner are now wanting to get into multifamily, and I've felt a little bit of like a push and kind of felt stuck. How do I get into this multifamily space, going from the single family home space?
Yeah,
And I kind of just remember back that like this is exactly how I felt when I was trying to get into that single family home space. So it's kind
yeah,
of just part of that transition. Um, so I'm pretty proud that I was able to do that. And I know looking back at the evidence that I can do this as well. It's just a
yeah,
matter of figuring I need to be again taking those steps, getting around the right people, asking the right questions.
yeah.
Um, mhm.
Now, you're obviously not a full-time real estate investor because you're also a financial advisor. Can you talk a little bit about, what you're doing in terms of your career and how those go hand in hand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a wealth coach that specializes in helping business owners and primarily real estate investors. I think the majority of my clients are real estate investors. Utilize a specific tool to essentially create a foundation for growing and storing their capital, growing their wealth in a tax efficient manner. So this has really parlayed itself very well into real estate. And I think that's why I was so drawn to this type of strategy. It's called infinite banking concept. Um, it's a strategy where you're utilizing a tool of permanent whole life insurance, and you're able to utilize that tool and leverage it much like you would like your home and having a HELOC. So being able to leverage that asset to be able to grow your real estate portfolio. So I think
Yeah,
it's just really it's blended so nicely for me to be able to be involved in real estate and do my day job because I'm using this tool to grow my real estate portfolio.
yeah,
And I'm able to show people exact, I don't know, scenarios of how I've been able to do that and how I've seen a lot of other clients be able to grow their wealth by utilizing a tool that allows them to invest in two things at once, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really smart. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening right now, when it comes to our government and taxes and stuff like that. And I think it can be scary for someone starting out where they could be looking at it as a deterrent. So I think you just have to, again, be creative, think outside of the box, and think about ways that you can protect your wealth as you're growing it, and just take advantage of the tools that are available to us right now. But on that note, we're going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Have you always wanted to invest in real estate to build long-term wealth? Start today with just $10,000. Introducing Honeytree Real Estate Investment Trust. Welcome to the Temple Building, a mixed-use 0.48-acre site with 25 residential tenants and 5 retail spaces. In the heart of Brantford, Ontario, this property was purchased for $5.8 million and was recently appraised for $6.470 million and an instant investor upside of $670,000. Honeytree is taking on a light value-add strategy, adding AC, laundry, and Energy Star efficient appliances. Coming soon to Honeytree Real Estate Investment Trust. For more information, go to honeytreegrove.ca. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Is the real estate investment you're considering a gold mine or a landmine? Introducing PropertyCast.io, the black magic of real estate investment analysis. Use PropertyCast.io to analyze and underwrite real estate investment opportunities, unlock the potential of a property, and share professional reports. Jordan McGregor is a commercial realtor and founder of PropertyCast.io. He identified the need to simplify and streamline how properties are underwritten to help investors make better decisions and sound investments. PropertyCast.io is a best-in-class purpose-built tool for real estate investment analysis. To find out more, go to PropertyCast.io, and to sign up, click the link in the show notes. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspired to Invest. We have Megan Betker here with us today. She's a real estate investor as well as a wealth advisor. And she was talking to us before the break about how she leverages infinite banking to basically protect and grow her wealth as a business owner and also a real estate investor. But going back to the concept of real estate investing, can you share anything that would be the craziest thing that's ever happened to you?
The craziest thing, I would say, I think two come to mind. Me shoveling driveway on a flip that I was doing when I was about 9 months pregnant. I was due 2 weeks later. So that was just crazy in my own head. The second would be we rented out a property and we thought we had a really great tenant. He was there for a couple of years. We thought he had this suite having his family in it. And we went there for an inspection one time and there was like all these random doors on really like closet, like things that shouldn't have been rooms that he was just renting out extra spaces.
Oh, wow.
Carpets were destroyed. So we gave him his notice and then he started coming to our home in the middle of the night, our personal home, and yelling on our street and leaving things at our door. And yeah, it was a whole thing, but you can't have the good without the bad. Right. So thankfully that was my one nightmare tenant. but I've also had some really great ones.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I have an uncle that went through a separation and he ended up renting a basement at a house, not realizing that he was basically moving into a rooming house. And,
Oh,
same thing, the landlord was just renting all these spots, like the landing between the basement and the next floor. Like the living room was like curtained off. So someone like had their room was in the living room. So, she was even renting, I think, above the garage. So maybe 9 or 10 different spaces. And it culminated that I have a cousin that went by just to drop off like an aquarium or something like that. And basically like SWAT descended on the house.
oh
Uh,
my goodness.
I don't know exactly on what. I don't know if it's for drugs or guns or something. But the irony is my uncle was actually the like a manager at a jail here in Toronto. So like he's like, no, look, I work at the jail. Like there's my jacket. Meanwhile, like him and my cousin are like
Oh my
on their
goodness.
face basically while squat's descending and his dog's like ripping around, freaking out. And he ended up,
Oh,
everybody basically got kicked out except for him. And then he basically just helped the homeowner, property owner, I should say, like basically fix the property up to sell over the year ahead. But definitely like a slumlord, like,
oh my goodness.
using it to that advantage. But it had this whole like crazy story that went along with it.
That's
So
the thing. Like people
happens.
have some really crazy stories. So mine isn't even that crazy, but I would say that that was the worst
Well,
that
it's
I've
crazy that they came to
personally
your
experienced.
house. Like, I mean, I've talked to other investors that have said, like, you never introduce yourself as the owner. You just say,
Mhm.
oh, like, I just work here or whatever it is. And he gave me a story about someone that, he shared that he was the owner and then they were texting him, like, asking for money all the time. And, I think because they had a child that he felt bad for, he would send money kind of here or there over the years. But he's like, yeah, I learned, like, you never tell anybody who you are.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put my primary residence on the tenancy application again. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Had I been home alone, I think it would have been a lot more distressing.
Yeah.
Being home with my infant at the time, but you know,
Yeah, yeah, it's all part of living and learning.
yes.
But I guess when it comes to down to advice and stuff like that, obviously you talked a lot about educating yourself. What would you say is some of the best advice that you've received as a real estate investor?
The best advice that I've received as a real estate investor would be to invest in yourself. I think investing in yourself is the best possible investment you can make because your potential is unlimited. We all want to be putting our money in places that it's going to grow, and
Yeah.
we have the ability to grow our money. With more knowledge, we can grow our money. With better network, more skills, and things like that, we can grow our net worth. And I think we underestimate how much we can do by leveling up ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's probably the best the best advice that I've been given.
Yeah, and I can understand, like, obviously it's so important to invest in yourself, but at the same time, I know there's just so much out there where people are charging money. So you also want to make sure that you are investing it in the right places, and that you're not being taken advantage of just because the cost can really widely vary. Like you can be looking at anything from a couple thousand to like 35,000, So obviously you want to make sure that you're going to get that return. And I think the biggest thing is that you have to be ready to take action. So you can't just educate yourself and spend all this money and then you're not actually able to move things forward. So I think it comes hand in hand because I think for people that, maybe have gone down the path of these education programs and stuff like that, if they aren't in the position to take action, then it'll all be for nothing, right?
Unfortunately, I think a lot of the education programs see that too. They see a ton of people come through their doors, they invest the money, and they're not cheap, 100%. And then they're not ready to take action, or they don't have it in them for whatever reason, whatever there is holding them back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's just like going down and like investing in anything and then losing your money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to be able to, and that's important to invest in your mind and things like that as well. If you're to try to maybe get past some of those blocks
Yeah. Yeah. No,
that's
for
stopping
sure.
you from taking action.
Now, when you think about how real estate investing has impacted your life, can you talk a little bit about, what that looks like for you now that you're 9 years in?
Mhm. I could not imagine not being invested in real estate. So I don't do real estate as my full-time gig. I don't intend to do it as my full-time gig because I absolutely love what I do, like on the for a day-to-day. But the ability to create something and like drive past houses that I built with my son, and we know that he's like put his handprint in things. It's huge. It's just amazing to know that um we're creating something that someone's going to build their memories in, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I couldn't imagine not continuing on in this space. It gives me the peace of mind knowing that I'm building a net worth essentially that's going to create my pension. Like I don't have a lot of people don't have pensions anymore, but I definitely don't have a pension with what I do. I'm self-employed. So doing my real estate, that is my retirement, my quote unquote retirement fund. That
Yeah.
is my future fund, right? Like that's what's going to build up something for my son as well. So real estate's given me that freedom. I make decent money in my job, and that's what covers our expenses. And then we're able to just keep building and expanding with our real estate. So that's really my trajectory there.
Yeah.
But the peace of mind that it's brought, yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
that's
valuable.
huge. Now, a lot of people go down this path of real estate investing because they want to be financially free. So I'm curious to
Mhm.
know what financial freedom means to you and if you have a particular financial freedom number in mind.
I would have had a financial freedom number in mind at some point, but with inflation, all of these other factors, I
Yeah,
feel like that
10x
number keeps
it.
changing.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to have to keep adjusting as time goes on.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone talks about having enough passive income being produced by their real estate to kind of support their living. And I think that having that as a kind of a goalpost is a really great trajectory to go on.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what I would want with what I would do with those assets,
Hmm.
but I think just having that in mind is gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that number keeps growing, but I would say probably liquid assets, probably around 5 million to create that passive income and be have enough money to be continue on expanding in my projects.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, obviously,
Mhm.
this podcast is called Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask
Mhm.
people what's a quote that they love that really inspires or motivates them.
I think the one quote that I hold on to the most is money won't buy happiness, but poor stewardship of money will steal happiness. And that is something that the great Nelson Nash said, and he is essentially the father of infinite banking concept. He came up with the most effective way to strategize with this type of system.
Hmm.
And I think that quote just really lands. I don't think that money in itself is going to make you happy, but it does provide some freedom and flexibility, peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I think if that's a constant worry, like a lot of us grow up, like this story isn't unheard of. Like my parents struggled with money and it was stressful in the house. And I think if we can find ways to mitigate that, both for ourselves, for our family, for our loved ones, I think
Yeah.
the quality of life that we're able to then have, I think it just is exponential.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Now, if anyone wants to get in touch to learn more about infinite banking or home building, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably reaching out on either social media or email is great. Social media is just at Megan Betker. You can also find VI Vantage Point Financial on Facebook. So either of those methods also work.
Great.
And I will leave my email contact with you so that can go out in the notes.
Great. So we'll make sure that's in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat today. And for anyone that is watching, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you have subscribed below and you're following along on social at Inspire to Invest Podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to Honeytree REIT and PropertyCast.io for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.